I think it was an uncommon humbling, and I think she's being slightly dishonest here. She can't be fully dishonest. She saw the original Iowa versus South Carolina game as a race war that she lost. These evil white people that are getting all this hype and all this attention, Caitlin Clark, and God's going to show the world that it's black women that dominate college basketball, and we deserve all.
The moment Dawn Staley questioned God over a basketball game against Caitlin Clark, the sports world should have known something deeper was brewing. But what nobody anticipated was that the WNBA and CBS would take this simmering resentment and transform it into a full-blown media war against the most electrifying player women's basketball has ever seen. When CBS Sports decided to build their entire tip-off pregame show around Dawn Staley and Renee Montgomery, two figures who have made their disdain for Caitlin Clark and her fans unmistakably clear, the network didn't just make a programming decision. They declared war on the very audience that saved women's basketball. Dawn Staley's loss to Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Final Four semifinal wasn't just a basketball defeat. For Staley, it represented something far more personal, far more ideological. When the Gamecocks fell to Clark's Hawkeyes, Staley admitted she questioned the very existence of God. "I did question, hey, why? I need to know why." This was a South Carolina program stacked with parade All-Americans, top 100 recruits, and the kind of talent that should have steamrolled any opponent. And yet Caitlin Clark, with her logo threes, her no-look passes, and her white skin, became the nightmare that shattered Staley's worldview. The loss wasn't just humbling, it was existentially devastating. But here's the part that changes everything. CBS didn't accidentally hire Dawn Staley. They didn't stumble into putting Renee Montgomery, who infamously called out Caitlin Clark's fans as racist toward Angel Reese on their pregame show. This was calculated. This was deliberate. And it represents the most self-destructive decision in sports media history.
To show her the penalty for her bigotry. And again, I can't speak for God, and God had nothing to do with it. I apologize for saying that. I just don't like Dawn Staley, and so I've gone a little too far. I've apologized. TJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that was when things were just starting for Caitlin Clark in a big way.
Yeah.
That was her junior year.
Yeah.
And so I think I watched part of that game or whatever. I think you told me they didn't double Caitlin Clark that whole game.
No.
They didn't run people at her. She ran around, shot threes all day, and they left her up.
The 2023 Final Four semifinal between South Carolina and Iowa represents the single most consequential women's basketball game of the modern era, not because of the scoreboard, but because of what it revealed about the soul of the sport. Dawn Staley's South Carolina Gamecocks entered that game as undefeated champions in waiting. They had dominated college basketball with overwhelming talent, physical superiority, and a coach who had built a dynasty on the backs of elite recruiting classes. Caitlin Clark and her Iowa Hawkeyes were supposed to be mere obstacles on the path to another Staley championship. But basketball doesn't care about narratives. Caitlin Clark dismantled South Carolina's game plan with surgical precision. The Gamecocks refused to double-team Clark, allowing her to run freely around screens, launch 30-foot threes, and orchestrate an offensive masterclass that left Staley frozen on the sideline. As one analyst noted, they didn't run people at her. She just ran around, shot threes all day, and they left her up. This wasn't a coaching failure, it was a coaching catastrophe. Staley's refusal to adjust, her insistence on playing straight-up defense against the greatest shooter in women's college basketball history, revealed a profound strategic arrogance. But the post-game analysis goes far deeper than X's and O's. The panel's breakdown exposes something unsettling about Staley's mindset. When she questioned God over losing to Caitlin Clark, she wasn't just expressing competitive frustration. She was revealing a worldview where racial identity supersedes athletic merit. The analysts argue that Staley saw the Iowa game as a race war that she lost. She had wrapped her team and herself in the belief that Team Black is better than Team White. And when Caitlin Clark's evil white people prevailed, her entire religious framework collapsed. The irony here is staggering. Staley's South Carolina program has consistently boasted more top-tier talent than any program in the country. She has 3 national championships, a roster full of future WNBA stars, and the kind of institutional backing that Caitlin Clark could only dream of at Iowa. And yet when Caitlin Clark beat her with inferior talent, better strategy, and sheer will, Staley couldn't process it as a basketball loss. It had to be cosmic injustice. It had to be a divine betrayal. The long-term consequences of this mindset are still unfolding. When CBS hired Staley for their premiere pregame show, they weren't just giving her a platform, they were endorsing her worldview. They were signaling to the millions of Caitlin Clark fans who had flocked to women's basketball that their favorite player's success was somehow illegitimate, somehow threatening, somehow worthy of resentment rather than celebration.
Donna Haskins.
Yes.
Give me a break.
Yes. Yes. That is.
And God's gonna help you win this race war by
Good grief.
winning a basketball game.
Yes. And and so here's the punchline to all of this. The WNBA is benefiting from this influx of Caitlin Clark fans watching the games. And so what do? What does CBS Sports do? Hey, we want a tip-off show, and we're going to...
The psychology behind Dawn Staley's resentment toward Caitlin Clark reflects a deeper sickness that has infected women's basketball culture. Compare this situation to previous eras of sports rivalry. When Magic Johnson and Larry Bird battled for NBA supremacy, there was mutual respect. When Serena Williams faced Maria Sharapova, the competition stayed on the court. But what we're witnessing in the WNBA is different. It's a culture of grievance, victimhood, and racial resentment that has made women's basketball the most unlikable culture by far of any sport. Consider Staley's own words. She admitted that losing to Caitlin Clark made her question God. Think about that statement for a moment. A coach with 3 national championships, with a roster overflowing with elite talent, with every advantage a program could possibly want, faced a single defeat and her faith cracked. The analysts note that she couldn't understand why she lost that race war and that it still bothers her. This isn't the mindset of a champion, it's the mindset of someone who believes their identity should guarantee victory. The panel draws a devastating parallel when they reference the 1980 Olympics and the us versus Russia mentality. Staley approached the Caitlin Clark matchup as a tribal conflict rather than a basketball game. When Lisa Bluder in Iowa executed a brilliant game plan, when Caitlin Clark made shot after impossible shot, Staley didn't see superior basketball, she saw white supremacy winning. And now, years later, that resentment has calcified into something uglier. Renee Montgomery's role in this narrative compounds the problem. When Montgomery publicly called out Caitlin Clark's fans as racist toward Angel Reese, she wasn't engaging in good faith criticism. She was reinforcing a narrative that anyone who supports Caitlin Clark must be motivated by racial animus. This is the same tactic we've seen deployed against other white athletes who achieve greatness. The immediate assumption that their fan base is inherently racist, that their success must be explained through the lens of white privilege rather than transcendent talent. The WNBA's response to Caitlin Clark's arrival should have been celebration. Here was a player who brought unprecedented ratings, sold-out arenas, and mainstream attention to a league that had been struggling for relevance. Instead, the WNBA embraced the resentment. They amplified voices like Staley and Montgomery who view Clark as a threat rather than a gift. The league's culture of grievance has poisoned their relationship with the very fans who could make them economically viable.
Could you be any dumber than the WNBA and CBS, Steve?
No, but I think this is all intentional, and I'm going to repeat something I've said many times. The whole culture of the WNBA, which extends beyond the players and coaches, I'm talking about the media members, the podcasters, some of the alternate media, many of the fans, and the social media sphere.
The financial implications of CBS hiring Dawn Staley and Renee Montgomery to host the tip-off show are catastrophic for women's basketball's future. Consider the numbers. Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA has generated the kind of ticket sales, merchandise revenue, and television ratings that the league has never experienced. Games featuring Clark and the Indiana Fever are consistently scheduled in prime time. Fans are traveling across the country to watch her play. This is the golden era of women's basketball visibility, and it's entirely driven by one white player from Iowa. And what does CBS do? They build their pregame show around 2 women who have openly criticized Caitlin Clark and her fans. The analysts put it bluntly, could you be any dumber than the WNBA and CBS? Hiring Staley and Montgomery isn't just tone-deaf, it's actively hostile to the audience they're trying to capture. They spit in the face of everyone that tries to like them over and over, the panel argues. Hey, I'm new here, what's this all about? Shut up, you white idiot, go back, you're the one who's destroying our sport. The panel draws a fascinating comparison to boxing. Were Mike Tyson fans required to watch Trevor Berbick fights? No, they could support their favorite fighter without being forced to embrace the entire ecosystem. But the WNBA demands that Caitlin Clark fans love the entire league, love the players who hate Clark, love the media figures who call them racist, and love a culture that views their support as somehow illegitimate. I think the Caitlin Clark fans are actually justified in boycotting every single other aspect of the WNBA, to a point of not watching a single minute of any game till she actually comes back on the court.